Today I would like to talk briefly about the global warming debate. I would just like to say that it's kind of a silly argument to say that, this is man-made or this is natural or, God did it. So climate change or global warming is man-made or not man-made. It's kind of a silly argument. The point that we need to understand is the climate is changing. And then the question becomes, what can we do about it? Now, historically, the ice core record shows that during various periods, the atmospheric carbon dioxide concentration changed. What would tell us if this particular climate change period that we're living in is a natural cycle or is induced by our behavior, our human behavior? So the debate pretty much centers around the argument that this is natural and therefore it's not man-made. So let's examine what that means. Now, we have ice cores from Greenland that come from ice which is 1 or 2 miles thick. So we know the atmosphere going back, millions of years. They can take each slice, each strata of ice as they go down. They can encapsulate those, and they can measure the gas content. So the question becomes, is this a naturally occurring event? Or, to put it another way, what's the cause? Historically, during what we call interglacial periods, the carbon dioxide level in the atmosphere increased to about 280 to 300 parts per million by volume. Well, science can explain all of the various periods of warming, and they can sample and measure atmospheric chemicals and environmental events which led up to the heating and cooling, such as periods of heating and periods of glaciation, which we know are cyclical and which have occurred at various times. So that just by looking at ice cores, we could tell that there was a glacial period if the atmospheric CO2 went down as far as 180 parts per million by volume. And we can tell you that it was a warmer, non-glacial, interglacial period if the level of CO2 was above 280 and up to 300 parts per million. So there you have it. So here's what I would say. Presently, we're experiencing a rapid melting of glacial ice. We know, for example, that the 1832 ice cores have 284 parts per million by volume, and that hardly varied very much for a period of around 10,000 years. So let's just say that for about 10,000 years, the CO2 levels were 260 to 280 parts per million by volume. Arctic ice, which I have discussed at length in previous videos, previously was measured to be shrinking at a rate of 2% or slightly more than 2% every 10 years. That was up until around 2009. Recent measurements in 2010 show that we are losing not 2% every 10 years, but every 10 years we're losing 10 or 11%. The present level of atmospheric carbon dioxide of around 390 parts per million exceeds any time in the last 750,000 years, and has gone up by more than 100 parts per million in the last 150 years. And let me remind you, once again, atmospheric CO2 has not been this high in more than 750,000 years. The rise of CO2 in the atmosphere is growing rapidly, and it's accelerating. Is our current climate change due to anthropogenic, man-made releases of various carbon compounds? Based on my research, I would say that the answer is definitely yes. Could we, by being smart, by being careful, by being innovative, by working hard, could we change this equation and reduce the amount of atmospheric CO2? Rate of growth of CO2 in the atmosphere is more than 1%, almost 1.7% per year. The important thing is that we understand that as human beings, we can influence the outcome of events. So regardless if you're a person who says, oh, this is a natural cycle, shut up and go sit down, or if you're in the 95% of people who are scientists, who understand science, who understand also that this is a man-made phenomena. Man-made, anthropogenic. I also believe, and I'm quite optimistic, that we could do something about that to have an extremely positive effect using our wits, hard work, known technologies, and that this cycle of destruction does not need to continue to its final conclusion.